Hello, everyone, and welcome to Episode 7 of Manchester to Madrid, a World Football Podcast. My name is Ryan Rogers, and I'll be joined today by my good friend and co-host of the show, Sam Johnson. Today we have an awesome episode planned for everyone, covering all things world football, as well as a preview for the return of La Liga, which is less than a week away. But first, if you're checking us out for the first time and like what you hear, we would greatly appreciate if you subscribed, left us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, and shared with 3 of your friends that love football as much as we do. We are available everywhere you listen to your podcasts, including Apple, Google, YouTube, Spotify, and many more. Find us on Twitter at RRMTMFootball and at SJ10MTM, or send us an email at mtmfootballpod@gmail.com. Now let's get to Episode 7. What's up, Sam?
Not much, Ryan. I'm doing pretty great because our football is well and truly back. We've seen the Bundesliga back for a couple of weeks now, but I think there's something missing in terms of just not having English football and Spanish football there for us. Of course, being Real Madrid fans and Manchester United fans specifically here, we really do miss our football. And like I said, Bundesliga has been great, but there's just so much more to talk about now and analyze. So we hope you guys enjoy this preview today, and we look forward to bringing you the news in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'm extremely excited for this next 2 weeks. Like Sam said, obviously we support English and Spanish clubs, and Bundesliga is really nice. It's been fun. It's been a bit different for me because I usually don't watch a ton of Bundesliga, so just tuning into weekly games has been exciting, a new experience. I'm learning new players, new things like that. But yeah, I'm just so excited to have our teams back finally. La Liga kicking off in less than a week's time, and then Premier League soon to follow the week after. So yeah, just really excited for what's to come in the next 2 weeks. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to Sam, and he's going to lead us off with his hot take for the week.
Yeah, so my hot take actually has to do with Liverpool this week. Liverpool has been in the news the last couple of days, of course, with the Timo Werner drama that we'll talk about later in the episode. But my hot take is going to be that Liverpool will drop off in the league significantly next season. Now, I'm not saying they'll finish outside the top 4 or something like that, but I do not think they'll be as dominant next year. Because if we're seeing anything right now about Liverpool, it's they're showing a lack of urgency to keep improving their squad. I think Timo Werner was the obvious player that they should bring in to keep moving forward, to keep building the squad depth and stuff like that. So I think we've seen with teams in the past, they've gotten a little complacent when they win the league or when they blow out the second-place team. And so I would be worried about Liverpool right now if I were a Liverpool fan, because I don't want to see that drop-off. I don't want to see the team get comfortable with being so much better, because if you aren't bringing in players to compete for positions, then where's that motivation at? And so that's my hot take for this week. I think Liverpool will drop off, whether that be past second place, we'll see, but I think they need to improve their squad if they're gonna keep this dominance.
Off the top of your head, Sam, who do you think is going to finish top 4 next year, if you just had to say right now?
As of right now, I'm pretty confident that Liverpool and City will keep their 2 spots on top of the league. I think the gap between the first 2 and everyone else will be a lot closer, but I could really see probably Man City winning the league next year, Liverpool finishing second. As things stand right now, Manchester City won't have any sort of Champions League or anything else to play for. So if they keep the core of their team together, they're going to be still really good. And so I think we could see them winning the league again. Liverpool finishing second, and then it's a toss-up from there. Probably Manchester United and Chelsea. That'd be my top 4.
So for my hot take for the week, it involves Timo Werner, and he has been all over the news this week. We will touch in on him in a lot more detail a little bit later in the pod. So I think he is going to win the Golden Boot next year in the Premier League. Assuming everything goes smoothly, he does end up moving to Chelsea, which is looking extremely likely at this point based on all the reports and inside news we've been hearing this past week. I think Frank Lampard is going to use him in a magnificent way. He's going to lead that line. He is finally being surrounded by really good weapons. He is just going to be a fantastic striker. And I know a lot of you might be thinking, a lot of players come over from the Bundesliga and take a year or so, 2 years, and then there are other leagues that also take that time. I just think Timo Werner's special. He's a really good striker, 24 years old, and he's still scoring 35, 40 goals a season. Just been magnificent. He has kept up with Lewandowski. He's outscored Haaland and just been terrific all around. Granted, this Leipzig team allows him to play this sort of role where he just can free roam the final third, he can drift wide, he can get in behind. But I think Frank Lampard's going to incorporate something similar, and Timo Werner is just going to kick it off next year. I'm expecting somewhere in the 30-goal mark for Timo Werner next year in the Premier League with Hakim Ziyech and plenty of other weapons around him. So I'm just extremely excited for Timo Werner. So yeah, I think he's going to absolutely kill it next year in his first season in the Premier League in blue.
I think it'll be super interesting to see how Frank Lampard deploys Timo Werner in the team. Right now we see them playing a 4-3-3 type, 2 wingers, 1 number 9. Whether he wants to move towards a system kind of similar to what Nagelsmann plays with Leipzig, kind of a 2 up top formation with maybe Tammy Abraham and Timo Werner playing off of him, that could work really well. As of right now, I think I see him playing on the wing, maybe the right wing or the left wing, with Tammy Abraham in the middle, just based off how Frank Lampard has set up his teams. If that's the case, maybe not, that 30-goal mark for him, but he's such a brilliant player. He brings so many weapons, great finishing, great movement, intelligence. So I could definitely see him scoring a bunch of goals, but I think it really is a hot take to say that he'll win the Golden Boot.
Yeah, I think he's just really special. He's one of those players that can do it all immediately in that first season. He's not going to need a lot of time to adjust. We've seen him do well in the Champions League as well. So yeah, I'm just really high on Timo Werner and genuinely excited to watch Chelsea next year. Coming up next is our usual news on the 2 clubs we support. I'm going to kick it over to Sam, and he's going to tell us a little bit about what's going on in Manchester United this past week.
Right, so with the Premier League coming back in the next 2 weeks here, June 19th being at Manchester United's first game at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. We're super excited about that. Fixture dates have been confirmed for the next kind of couple of weeks. So for the news all around, the Premier League in general is coronavirus testing. There's been 0 positive tests again. So that's five rounds of testing in the Premier League now. Only 2 of the rounds have come back with positive tests, very little numbers, and now we're 2 weeks away, and there's 0 positive tests, so great news for everyone in that regard. It looks like everything's going to plan, and we're going to be back right on time. So for United news specifically, United fans will know we had a inter-squad friendly at Old Trafford yesterday. So it was great to see some of the pictures from that. We didn't get any video, unfortunately, but we did get to see kind of the team lineups, and we got a score confirmation. Marcus Rashford scored a hat trick. So back in training now, back in match mode now. It'll be super, super great to see him back playing with Bruno, playing with Paul Pogba. I think he'll be really, really dangerous, and I think now is the time that he's going to take that step up from great to really, really, really good. And so we'll see that in the next couple of weeks. Just, not much news in terms of transfers with United this week. I think things have been kind of calm with the Jadon Sancho thing right now. It's really up in the air. Usually we see with United and the media, they're just trying to make things up with us. Use Manchester United as the headline grabber, as the attention plug, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, very little transfer news. The only thing kind of I have to add on that is the 5 substitutions rule that we're going to see implemented in the Premier League. The FA did confirm that we will see 5 substitutions. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has come out in press conference and said that he welcomes the 5 subs. He thinks it's a good idea for his team. He says that we perform best. We have our best games when we've had that rest. And with the squad depth we have, I think it's pretty strong right now. So, yeah, I think 5 subs is fine for us, and I think it'll give some of our young players a chance to get on the field as well.
So now that we've covered Manchester United, I'm going to go ahead and tell us a little bit about what's going on with Real Madrid recently. First off, this was towards the beginning of the week. RMC Sport, which is a pretty good source for French news, especially when it comes to Real Madrid for the most part, they tend to be fairly respectable when it comes to knowing about a club when you're not in the same country that the club resides. They have come out and said we've stepped up talks with Eduardo Camavinga. Both Florentino Perez and Zinedine Zidane are super, super high on him, and we should see an offer fairly soon. It's probably going to be anywhere between around the 50-ish mark, I want to say. Granted, that's a lot for a 17-year-old, but we've seen Perez splash the cash on those young players in the past 2 or 3 years. We paid large amounts of money for Renier, Rodrigo, Vinicius, and all of them are stars. So I have no problem if this is our only summer signing. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to be able to strengthen in other areas given the financial circumstances around the world. But if we're bringing in Eduardo Camavinga, who I think is going to be a world beater in the next couple years and a reliant backup to Casemiro in the next season, I think it's a great move all around, and I would love to see him in white next year. Next up, this is talking about Schalke and Real Madrid. We've talked about Schalke in previous shows discussing just how much they've really fallen off. They really struggled right before the 2-month layoff, and now we're back, and they are still struggling. At the time of recording this, they have finally scored a goal. I think it's their second goal, Sam was telling me, since the return from the coronavirus break, and they're just really, really struggling. And because of that, David Wagner, their head coach, is definitely on the hot seat. And recently, Schalke have been sort of sniffing around Raul. Raul is a part of Real Madrid's team. Right now he's coaching Castilla team, and he has been a really good manager. He's played for Schalke as well, so he definitely kind of understands the club, gets the culture there, and he's definitely a promising young coach. So keep an eye out. Maybe not this season unless things get really bad, but in the offseason, Raul could definitely make the switch to Schalke if they're still interested. Next up are two little transfer things I'm going to touch on. First, we have been linked with Jadon Sancho in the past week. These links have popped up here and there from a couple different sources, some from Marca in the past. This one comes from Bild, which is probably one of the biggest newspapers when it comes to transfer rumors in Germany. They've said we have a potentially long-term interest in Jadon Sancho. We've sniffed around him in the past. We've been looking at him now. We haven't really talked with Dortmund or anything, like nothing truly serious, but I think there's definitely some interest there. I personally see him as a backup option to Kylian Mbappe. And if by some miracle Jadon Sancho doesn't move this summer, and then next summer when we're moving for Mbappe, PSG still refuse or Mbappe signs a new deal, something along those lines, and it just becomes unfeasible at the time, I think we could be interested in Jadon Sancho if he doesn't leave Dortmund this summer. And then last up on the transfer news is another report from Bild. They have come out and published that we have offered $80 million for Kai Havertz to Bayer Leverkusen, and then there would be another contingency where he would actually get to stay at Leverkusen for another year and then develop and then get to come back to Madrid after that. This has been really interesting. I don't know where I kind of stand on this. I love Kai Havertz. I know Sam is even higher on Kai Havertz than I am, and I think he's going to be really good. He's actually been a really, really pleasant surprise at this number 9 role he's been playing. I don't see why there's any reason he can't sort of take that Karim Benzema-esque role that we've seen Karim Benzema do so well at Real Madrid for so long. I don't think this is really going to happen. Madrid don't seem to really have the money to be forking out this amount of money for players other than Camavinga right now. That seems where the true interest lies, but maybe this is a long-term sort of deal, or maybe it's just a random rumor that has no truth behind it. But yeah, keep an eye out for Kai Havertz. We're going to touch on him later in the show. He's a extremely, extremely good player, and like I said, both Sam and I really love him, so we're going to touch on him a little bit later. That's basically everything for Real Madrid, and we're going to go ahead and head into our winners and losers section of the week. So, Sam, go ahead and tell us what your winners and losers are for this past week of world football.
Yeah, so we kind of foreshadowed it earlier in the episode here, but my winner for the week, it has to be Chelsea. We've seen in the last 4 or 5 months, they've been improving the squad with Ziyech being signed and now Timo Werner as well. It does look like Roman Abramovich is splashing the cash. It looks like he's committed to this team, as he's always been. But, we've seen the last couple of seasons now, they've taken maybe a step back or two, and it's good to see for Chelsea and their fans that they're going to continue to push forward. They're going to back Lampard completely. They're going to make up for the transfer ban that they had. Ryan and I talked about it this week, maybe signing Ben Chilwell or another left back. I think we'll talk a little bit more about that as well, but it'll be super interesting to see whether Chelsea keep going here, whether they end up signing a center back, a left back, and keep pushing on it. Because as of right now, I think Chelsea are on great pace to catch that top 2 if they keep adding to the squad and if Lampard keeps growing as a coach and these young players keep pushing forward in their development.
I love Roman Abramovich. He has just been a consistently good owner for that club. He's not in this huge company where they've got tons and tons of money. He doesn't have like oil money, I don't think, or anything like that. But he has just always been so loyal to Chelsea. It's like he owns them. He invests in them because he loves the football club and he likes to see them succeed. And we can't say that about a lot of other owners. And he does really good business. It's not like he's paying these grand fortunes for these players. He's getting them on really good deals. Timo Werner, probably going to be about $49 million once he pays the release clause. Incredible price tag. Obviously, coronavirus has sort of changed how we see prices, but if you take that out of the equation, $49 million for a player like Timo Werner would be an absolute steal before this all happened. That's probably about half of what his starting price tag would be in the past. And then also Ziyech, since it was a few months ago, I don't remember his exact price tag. I think it's somewhere between 40 and 60, but still, that is a great price. $100 million, and you're getting two like elite players, striker that can score a ridiculous amount of goals consistently, and a creative player that has led this Ajax team to countless victories over huge teams such as Real Madrid. He has just been a stalwart for Ajax over the past couple years, and for $100 million, they are getting two amazing players. It's
really interesting to examine Abramovich and what he's done with Chelsea. It's almost as if he's running his own FIFA career mode. That's what this is. I've done a little bit of research with this in the past. Roman Abramovich has put a lot of money, and he has not made a profit. There are very few owners out there in world football that have made a profit from running these football teams. So for him to go in there as a sole proprietor, like you were saying, and dump all this money in there, it's admirable, and I think Chelsea fans should be proud of what they've built. So I think the future looks really, really bright for Chelsea, and look out for them in the next couple of seasons for sure. So my loser for this week is going to be another London club. It's going to be Tottenham and their loyal supporters. Now, reports are saying the club will continue with their current management and the squad they have now for minimum the rest of this calendar year, with very few improvements coming this summer. Pierre Højbjerg from Southampton is going to be one of their only interests this summer, and Højbjerg's a good player, but I don't think he's really what Tottenham fans had in mind to maybe start pushing that top four again. It just has to be Spurs for my loser, because it just looks like they're going to be stuck in this revolving door now. Jose Mourinho's still in charge. We all know he's not the right man for that job. We've seen in the past they've struggled with spending, whether they've sold a big player. We can look back all the way to Gareth Bale and how they improved the squad after that. It could have been a lot better. It seems like they had their opportunity with Eriksen and Kane and Son, and they've missed that now. And now the down slope is here, and it could be a really, really nasty couple of years for Spurs and their fans, but we'll have to wait and see.
Sam is right regarding Spurs. Pierre-Emile Højbjerg is a really good player, but he's a squad depth player. He's not some starter that's going to jump in your team and really improve. We've seen Spurs sign other players like Tanguy and Ndombele, and that's the sort of player they need, and they've used him wrong. So Spurs are just kind of a mess right now. I think they actually borrowed a 200-some million from some bank this past week as well. So it looks like they're in need of money to sort of continue at the rate they are, and at the same time, they still aren't going to be able to sign any players. They have been missing that backup to Harry Kane for years now, and it has really, really cost them. I think that's the thing that's held them back more than anything. Harry Kane, obviously an elite striker, one of the best in the world when he's healthy, but he's not healthy all the time. He suffers from a lot of different random injuries here and there, often long layoffs, and they've always had to find a way to adapt to fill the gap that Harry Kane has left in the team, whether that's moving Son to the middle or pushing Dele Alli higher up the field, and it just never really worked, and because of that, they've really struggled the past couple of years when it comes to depth. And Højbjerg, if that's the only signing, nothing's really going to change, especially if Mourinho's still coach. Probably 6th, 7th for Spurs next season based on what I'm hearing right now. So for my winners and losers this week, first up my winner, and that is Sam. A couple weeks ago, he had a bold prediction saying Lewandowski could actually win the Ballon d'Or, and that is coming to fruition. Wow, Lewandowski has been on absolute fire for Bayern this year. Granted, Bayern are extremely good. They're probably the best team in the world right now under Hansi Flick, but Lewandowski has just been firing on all cylinders. This past weekend, he hit his 44th goal of the season. He basically has at least one trophy sealed in the Bundesliga, and now I don't see why they can't push for the Pokal as well as the UCL. So if we're talking treble and then 50 goals a year and no international competitions, Lewandowski has to be that first-place candidate for the Ballon d'Or this year. So I think Sam had a really good, bold prediction then. I know some of our listeners have been wanting to hear back about some of the predictions we've had and see if any of them have come to fruition, and I think this is a very real possibility. So great, bold prediction from Sam a couple weeks ago, and he is my winner for this week for sort of seeing this a couple weeks before it's starting to turn into something serious.
Yeah, and I think that all leads back to Bayern and their success on the world stage right now. I think they're the best team in the world. We saw them play against Leverkusen this weekend. It looked like maybe they were under the cosh a little bit at the start, but then we saw their quality really shine through, and they ran Leverkusen out of the park. And that has to do a lot with Robert Lewandowski. 44 goals, like you said, his career high now. And there's still 6 games left in the Bundesliga, 5-6 games. Correct me if I'm wrong, but of course the Pokal, like you said, still there. Champions League returning in August as of right now. There's no doubt in my mind that he will win the Ballon d'Or now, because there's no player that can replicate the success that he's having on the field week in, week out right now.
Yeah, if he wins the double or even a triple with the goals he's had, I mean, that's basically a Ronaldo and Messi-esque season, and I would have to say he deserves it.
We could definitely see him push 60 goals this year. If we see the Champions League finish out in its entirety, he could definitely push 60 goals. And I don't think it's possible for someone to not win the Ballon d'Or if they have 60 goals in a year.
Well, for my loser this week, it is Liverpool and all their fans that were so excited about Timo Werner. You know, there's that really funny thing that happens every once in a while where you go on YouTube, type in a player and the transfer team that he's been linked to, and there's like, for example, it'd be like, Timo Werner, welcome to Liverpool, and I just kind of have to laugh, and all the faces of all those videos that have been made and all the Liverpool fans, they were so excited. They were dead set on Timo Werner. Everyone was like 100% confident, including the club and all of its leadership, that Timo Werner wasn't going to pick anywhere else. They were going to wait for him. He was going to wait for them, and eventually a deal would be sorted either this summer, next summer, sometime. But everyone just thought, Timo Werner is a lock for Liverpool, no questions asked. And then out of nowhere, Chelsea swoops in, and it seems likely that Timo Werner is now there. He's going to be headed to London instead of Liverpool. And I think a lot of Liverpool fans were just heavily disappointed in this. And it's really funny. I just wanted to touch on this really quick. I feel like there's a lot of protected clubs in world football, looking at Barca, Liverpool, where they have these transfer targets in mind, and when they miss out on them, there's a ton of newspapers, media outlets that come rushing to save them, saying like, oh, well, they chose to back out of these signings at the last second. They actually changed their mind. They weren't really interested anymore. The price tag was too high, and it's trying to save face. And I think this instance is one of those where, right after we saw all the reports about Werner going to Chelsea, there were a bunch of other reports from newspapers like the Echo, and like I think Bleacher Report might have said something, I could be wrong there, but just saying like, oh, Liverpool have, they called up Timo Werner a couple days ago and said they're just not going to be able to pull off the deal, and they're really sorry, and they just don't have the money. It's not financially feasible. Klopp saying something about, well, it wouldn't make sense to splash out all this money on Timo Werner and then have to explain to my players about the wage cuts they've had to take this year. So it just seems sort of like a save face measure, and it's just interesting when clubs like Liverpool, Barcelona, I'm sure there's some others, have these reports that come out and sort of try to protect them when deals don't work out their way 100%. Next up is our transfer news segment, and then we are going to go ahead and talk about La Liga, but first transfers. So I'm going to head it over to Sam, and he's going to tell us a little bit about the 3 teams that he thinks Kai Havertz would fit best at, given he moves this summer.
Yeah, so my first is going to be Liverpool, actually, unfortunately here. So for me at least, him having that German connection with Jurgen Klopp would do really well to help him kind of adapt to the Premier League. I think Liverpool would have to change their style a little bit. They would have to play a little bit more of a midfield game, but I think Kai Havertz, very similar to Roberto Firmino in a lot of ways in the way they play, in the way they link up their teammates, whether we see him play in maybe a Coutinho-esque number 10 role for Liverpool, or we see him play as a number 9, like we've seen in the last couple of weeks with Bayer Leverkusen. We'll have to wait and see, but I think Liverpool would be the best fit for him out of anywhere. Next, I actually think Real Madrid would do really well with Kai Havertz. It's like you said before with Karim Benzema. I think they could be very similar players. Maybe Kai, I'd like to see Kai maybe bulk up a little bit, come a little bit stronger. Certainly the technical abilities there, the vision's there, everything is there for him and set in stone for him to really take the next step up. And I think he's ready to go and start for Real Madrid now. I think he could jump into the Real team now. Maybe not start every game, but definitely start a good amount of games and come off the bench really strong. I think we could see him really flourish there. Real Madrid, of course, with all the youth they have, he would fit into that setup really well. The price tag maybe a little bit of a deterrence here, and of course with Real's plans, as we know, to go after Mbappe to maybe strengthen the squad this summer, next summer, Jadon Sancho, whatever happens there. But I think he would fit really well at Real Madrid. And the third team that I would see him fit really well in is going to be my beloved Manchester United. Now, this is partly me just hoping that he plays for us. That's definitely true here, but I think he would fit into the team really well. I think what we've seen with United over the last 18 months with Solskjaer in charge is we've really been lacking that creative spark. We've been good against the teams that we can sit back and defend and then hit on the counterattack. And that's great against great teams, but we need someone that can unlock the door against these smaller teams that are going to sit back. And I think us signing Bruno Fernandes was great, but I think Kai Havertz would be the perfect player for us to sit in the hole and distribute, link everything up. We've seen United be linked with Jack Grealish, James Maddison in the past. I think Kai Havertz is just an upgrade on those. His price tag, of course, will be hard to match, but I think if we were to pay that and we were to get him in the team, he'd be well worth it.
I've got a couple questions for you, Sam. First off, just off the top of your head, I don't even really want an explanation. I'm just curious, and our listeners might be curious as well. If you had to choose as a Manchester United fan between Kai Havertz or Jadon Sancho this summer, you could only have one, who would it be?
It's going to be Jadon Sancho. I'll say this really quick. United fans will share my frustration here. We have struggled on the width, on the wide players for a long time. Jadon Sancho has a little bit more of a creative spark than Kai Havertz, but it would be great to have a debate there because either one would be fantastic. But I think Jadon Sancho is the easy answer there.
Well, this will definitely not happen, but a hypothetical front three, Kai Havertz in the middle, Rashford on the left, and Jadon Sancho on the right would be absolutely awesome. Unfortunately, that's never going to come to fruition. I just don't see that ever happening. Those two players are way too expensive, and there's just no way they go to the same club. But just hypothetically thinking about that would be goals galore, creativity galore, an awesome front three. Next up in our transfer news is Sandro Tonali. He has been deemed the next Andrea Pirlo, and I don't see why he can't fill the shoes of Andrea Pirlo in the Italian national team, as well as live up to the legacy that Pirlo has created domestically for all the clubs he's played for. He has been constantly linked for well over a year now to AC Milan, Inter Milan, Juventus. Similar to how Bayern grabs those really good younger players in Germany, Sandro Tonali could be that next player in Italy that moves to one of the bigger clubs. He currently plays for Brescia and has been incredible for them for probably about 2 years now, but it seems like he wants to join Inter Milan. He doesn't want to go to Juventus or AC Milan. I can't blame him on AC Milan. That is a disaster, but I think he would be extremely good at Inter. Antonio Conte is building this really, really good midfield. And if we're looking at a midfield of like Cincy, Eriksen, and Sandro Tonali, you can mix in Brozovic there. Inter could be really good. They could challenge for the title next year, and I would love to see Sandro Tonali wearing an Inter Milan jersey next year. Last up on our transfer news, and that is Ben Chilwell. He has been heavily linked to Chelsea, particularly right after the Timo Werner news broke. A bunch of reporters also came out and said Chelsea are going to move for Ben Chilwell. He is now their number one target now that Timo Werner is secured. Chelsea have been in need of a left back for a couple years now. Marcus Alonso was good back when Chelsea were winning titles, but has really faded off since then. Emerson just really hasn't found his footing in London, so there's definitely a need for left back. Frank Lampard has had a couple names that he's been interested in, Nicolas Tagliafico, Ben Chilwell, to name two, but there's definitely some others. A couple months ago, they were linked with Alex Telles before PSG stepped in. I think he's going to PSG now. But yeah, Ben Chilwell would be a really good fit. The big question here is the money. If Leicester are going to be holding out for a ridiculous fee, kind of like what they did with Harry Maguire and Manchester United, I'm not sure if Ben Chilwell would be worth it for Chelsea, especially if it comes at the cost of strengthening in other areas that they could need. Lampard isn't big on Kepa, so he's going to want a goalie, whether that be this summer or next summer, or maybe even in January if things get really bad. He is in need of another center back. Their center back pairing has just been sort of questionable for several years now. Kurt Zuma isn't that great. Andreas Christensen has dealt with some injuries. Rudiger is solid, but nothing crazy good. So someone like Nathan Ake, who they could bring back with a buyback option from Bournemouth, would be really good. But yeah, they just need a couple other positions. I think they have all the potential in the world to push for third, if not higher next year. But if they're spending a ridiculous amount, like $80 million or so on a left back, they're not going to have the money, especially given the financial circumstances right now, to strengthen in other key areas. So if I were Frank Lampard, I would move for someone like Nicolas Tagliafico. He is 27 years old, still has plenty of years left. Been really, really solid for Ajax as well as arguably the only good defender on the Argentina national team, and he would cost probably half of what Ben Chilwell would cost, 30, 40 million, and I think that would give them money to strengthen in other areas. I think Sam feels a little bit differently, so I'm going to let him discuss his love for Ben Chilwell and how he thinks he will fit in the Chelsea team.
Yeah, we had a pretty big argument about this earlier this week. With the current market, it is so important to have great fullbacks, and you have to pay for them. Yes, United went out last summer and spent $50 million plus on Aaron Wan-Bissaka, and that's great. I think that's been a very successful transfer, and it will continue to prove its worth. I think Ben Chilwell is even better right now. I think Ben Chilwell is on a better path than Aaron Wan-Bissaka, and that's bold for me to say, but Ben Chilwell, he's adapted to the English game. He's been around long enough to kind of have a great sense of composure, and he knows the success. He knows Leicester's success, and so for him to move to Chelsea would be fantastic. He would just add another layer of leadership and another layer of talent going forward for them. I think if they were to add another dynamic player on the wings, they would just continue to get better and better and better. And I think 80 million, yes, it's a lot of money, and yes, it would be almost a world record fee for a defender, but you have to look at Manchester City and their mishaps with fullbacks. They've kind of gone out and signed foreign fullbacks that have come in and not necessarily done well at all. They've had not very much success other than Kyle Walker, who happened to be already in the English game. So in my opinion, Ben Chilwell is the way to go. Yes, he's going to be expensive, but he is the move. And if they were to sign him and then maybe find the money to sign a goalkeeper or another center back, however they decide to do it, I think they would be really, really set to push that top two next year.
If they're dead set on a Premier League proven player, I would look at someone else like Lucas Digne. He has been extremely good for Everton. He's played in the Premier League a couple years. He is a free kick specialist, so he has all the traits to whip in balls from the left side. He's a great crosser. He can even shoot. He has some goals in him, and I think he would be a lot less expensive. They could talk to Everton. They have a pretty good relationship. They've done a lot of business in the past, so I would look at someone other than Ben Chilwell, not because I don't rate Ben Chilwell, but I just think the money is way too much, especially for a player that's only 23, I think. So yeah, I think other options would do them a lot better than spending that much money on a player like Ben Chilwell. That wraps up everything we have for the transfer news segment of the week. So we are going to go ahead and get started on our preview of La Liga, which is returning in less than a week.
Yeah, so jumping into the La Liga preview here, we're going to give you guys 7 teams to watch for the rest of the La Liga season this year. Ryan knows a little bit more about La Liga than I do. I'm going to bounce some ideas off of him as we go on. But Ryan, you want to go ahead and tell us about your first team to watch?
So yeah, some of these teams are going to be self-explanatory. Obviously, we're going to talk about the big teams in the league because those teams are worth watching. There's going to be a really interesting title race. But yeah, without further ado, number 1 is Real Madrid. My team, Hazard and Asensio, are going to be back healthy for the first time all year together. Asensio recovering from an ACL injury, and Hazard was dealing with multiple different really bad ankle injuries. They are finally going to be back, and more than likely, if they're healthy, they will be on the wings for Real Madrid with Karim Benzema in the middle. We're finally going to see a healthy Real Madrid side, and it's just going to be really exciting to watch. They currently sit 2 points back of Barcelona. They have the best defense in Spain, only 19 goals allowed. So their defense has been incredibly good this year, which has kept them in the title race. Without Hazard, Asensio, Benzema's been up and down like usual. We have sort of been lacking the goals required to really push for the title. But at the same time, Zinedine Zidane has done a really good job of plugging all the gaps in our defense. Varane has been exceptional this year, incredibly good. Ferland Mendy, an absolute amazing signing. Doesn't have all the flair and attacking ability that Marcelo has. That will come in time, but he is so much more defensively sound than Marcelo. Courtois having a bounce-back year. He has gone from really struggling last year to becoming probably a top 5, top 7 goalie in the world. So incredible season from Courtois. Ramos' leadership, as usual, has just really allowed the defense to carry us, which is not something you can usually say about Real Madrid. But yeah, only 19 goals allowed this season. Best defense in Spain, one of the best defenses in Europe statistically. So keep an eye on their defense and see if it can maintain that low goal-scoring record that we've been able to have so far in the league. And then last up, touching on Real Madrid, we do have some tough games ahead. We have Real Sociedad, Valencia, Villarreal, and Bilbao. Those are the 4 hard games. If we can come away with 10, 12 points out of all of those, I think we could be well on our way to seeing Real Madrid surprisingly win a trophy this year. I wasn't super high on Madrid winning a trophy till they bring in a superstar, hopefully next summer. But yeah, I think they could sneak La Liga out of nowhere. They could really come back with a trophy depending on how things go, the health of their players, the defense, and how they do in those tougher games. So yeah, Real Madrid, first team to keep an eye on once La Liga returns.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's going to argue with you to say that Real Madrid and Barcelona are the 2 horses in the title race this year. That's the way it's been for as long as we can remember. So why don't you go ahead and tell us about Barcelona and what's kind of going on there?
Yeah, Barcelona is an interesting case. I have to respect them because domestically they are just incredible. They seem to always have the one-up on Real Madrid. No matter what we do, no matter how good of a season we're having, we can win 3 Champions Leagues and barely get by with 1 La Liga title. They are dominant domestically and just an incredible squad. And a lot of that has to do with the one and only Lionel Messi. Generational player, one of the greatest ever, if not the greatest ever. And currently there have been reports about him battling a thigh injury, him been missing some practices here and there. So definitely keep an eye out for the status of Lionel Messi. If he is battling with some injuries, I am nowhere near as high on Barcelona. Sam and I have touched on previous episodes regarding what Barcelona are going to do once Lionel Messi are gone. They don't seem to have a plan for the future or a really set, solid team without him. So if Messi is battling injuries, misses games here and there, I think Barcelona, there's every reason to believe they could drop some points. Like I said, they're 2 points ahead of Real Madrid currently, so it's a really tight title race, and 1 game could decide the title at the end of the year.
Yeah, I like how you brought up the domestic form for Barcelona, and it always seems as if no matter what kind of is going on with them, whether it be political drama, whether it be drama with the players or the transfers, whatever it may be, they always seem to get it together in the league and make a strong push. So that'll be really cool to see whether the status quo continues, whether Barcelona will win another league title or Real Madrid can, like you said, surprise everyone and run up and steal it right from under Barcelona's nose.
It's also come out that Luis Suarez is ready to go. This is going to be a blow to some of those other La Liga teams that were counting on Lionel Messi really having to run the show for Barcelona. Suarez had that long injury layoff, and this couple-month break has given him time to recover, similar to how Hazard and Asensio have been able to recover with Real Madrid. It looks like he's going to be ready to go right from the get-go. From the very first game, Luis Suarez will be back in the team, and that is huge for Barcelona. They have often needed that goal-scoring threat when Messi is having an off game, or he just needs some help sometimes. So Luis Suarez being back is a huge help for Barcelona. Now, unfortunately, there are some things that give me some concern regarding Barcelona. They still haven't had a ton of games under Quique Setien. We've seen that he has had some trouble sort of getting the team set how he wants them to play. It's a big change from their previous coach. So, yeah, I just don't know exactly how they're going to play. A new coach and then only a few games and then this long break could do wonders or do a lot of harm for the team. It could allow them time to really grow chemistry, really grow this relationship with the head coach, or it could hinder them, and just this long month layoff has resulted in them not being able to bond or just really figure out exactly what they want to do under Quique Setien's leadership. They also have tough games against Sevilla, Bilbao, Atletico being the main one, and Villarreal. So similar to how Real Madrid, they have 4 really tough games. All the other games I'm anticipating Real Madrid and Barcelona will win more than likely. Each team has 4 hard games, and if they can overcome those, this could be a really interesting title race going into the final day of the year.
Yeah, and you mentioned Atletico Madrid there, and you and I have kind of talked about in the last couple of weeks Atletico being maybe a little bit in a disappointing position right now, although you can't forget what happened with Liverpool for them, beating Liverpool in the round of 16 in the Champions League. But why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about Atletico Madrid?
Yeah, so like Sam said, Atletico Madrid have currently been sitting in a disappointing 6th place. Now, granted, that is only, I think, 2 points back from 3rd place, so 3rd through 6th or 7th is very, very tight. But still, regardless, if the season were to end, which at one point that was definitely a possibility, Atletico Madrid would have missed out on Champions League. So if you really think about it, 6th place is disappointing. For a club of their stature, with the players and coach they have, 6th is rather unacceptable, and they should at least be 3rd at all times. So disappointing sixth place. We'll have to see what Atletico Madrid do, if they can bounce back up. Can they carry that momentum from that incredible Liverpool win in the Champions League? And can João Felix get going? He really had just not the year that everyone was really expecting him to have. He was extremely hyped up, and I was a little concerned about the pressure he was going to have because of the price tag and just the media presence and glorification of his time at Benfica. And Diego Simeone has struggled a bit to fit him in the squad where he sees him and just allow him to be as successful as he can. He's also dealt with some injuries here and there. It seemed like he was coming into form right before the outbreak and then 2-month layoff. So at least we can expect him to be healthy and ready to go. But it's just going to come down to, can he get in that form? Can he find some rhythm? Can he find some goals here and there? If João Felix can get it going, I think that will boost the rest of the Atletico team, and they could definitely finish third like we're used to seeing them finish.
Yeah, I think a lot of us saw João Felix getting off to kind of a slow start, especially because of kind of how Simeone deploys the team. We all know about that. We've talked about it plenty of times in the podcast already. Atletico Madrid play that defensive style, that work until you can't work anymore mentality. And I think we expected João Felix to take a little bit of time to get used to that. And maybe we'll see him after the break here, fresh legs, fresh start, maybe he'll get going. But if we move from the most defensive team in the league, let's talk about Real Sociedad, who might just be the most exciting team in the league. Let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, Real Sociedad are an absolute joy to watch. They are totally crazy. Their defense, highly susceptible. Their attack, absolutely crazy. It reminds me of a team like Gladbach or Leverkusen in the Bundesliga. We've been watching Leverkusen a bit more sound defensively, but similar to Gladbach, where it's just crazy attacking football, end-to-end, wide open. They have so much talent. We look at some of these players on the Real Sociedad roster. Martin Odegaard, probably the best midfielder in La Liga this year. I'm trying not to be biased. I love Martin Odegaard, and obviously he's owned by Real Madrid, but on loan this year he has been just phenomenal, dropping deep into that center attacking mid or even deeper playmaking center mid role, and he has just been terrific, providing goals and assist opportunities for players like Alexander Isak, who is finally starting to blossom into the player many expected him to. Christian Porto and Mikel Oyarzabal are two players that storm down the wings. They add goals, they add flair. They've been phenomenal. We can expect a big move for Mikel Oyarzabal in probably this summer or next summer. He's a really good player. Pep Guardiola, I know, has been interested in him as a Leroy Sané replacement, so that just goes to show how good Oyarzabal is for Real Sociedad. They also have some other really good players, Adnan Januzaj. Sam knows all about him. I was really big on Januzaj when he was at Manchester United, and he's moved to Real Sociedad because things just didn't work out perfectly. And in all honesty, he's actually been pretty good. He's nowhere near the hyped-up player that we anticipated him to be when he first came onto the scene, but still a really solid, fun player that can add goals, that flair from the wings, just an all-around very creative, good player. They also have Mikel Merino. Didn't play great at Dortmund, but has moved since then to Sociedad and been one of the best box-to-box midfielders in La Liga this year. Him and Odegaard together in the midfield, as well as Asier Iaramendi, have just formed a really good partnership, and Mikel Merino is definitely a player to keep an eye on, both at Sociedad and in future moves to come. He could be a really good player and definitely find himself in the Spanish national team in a few years. And then finally, Willian Jose, their striker that has been around for several years now, not this young, exciting talent, but consistently adds those goals, sort of that number 9 you need to finish off those chances when you have all these creative players around. So Sociedad, currently in 4th place. They are just an extremely good team. If their defense can get it together, we could be looking down the road and see Real Sociedad, just one of those situations similar to Ajax where we thought, wow, all those players, all that attacking talent played on one team together, or that Monaco team from a couple years ago. So Sociedad definitely wants to keep an eye out. If they can stay sound defensively, like I've said, and still bag the goals that they were before the league stopped, Sociedad are one of the most exciting teams in the world, and probably the most exciting team to watch in La Liga.
Yeah, we'll continue the pattern here. We move from Atletico Madrid being that defensive style of play to Sociedad, the exact opposite, and now we move to a Getafe team that is the exact opposite of that. I've heard a couple of times from various sources and various from takes from different pundits and stuff like that Getafe is just incredibly annoying to play against. They Just they suffocate you. A lot of time wasting, but it is very effective. So why don't you give us your opinion on them?
Yeah, Getafe are an interesting one. They are very similar to those Atletico Madrid teams we saw from a couple years ago where talent-wise they're not incredible. They have some good players. They just play that really rugged style, super defensive, sit back, be really strong, that really aggressive 4-4-2. Just a really, really hard team to play against, really gritty. They can be dirty here and there, but it has led to some great success. 5th place last season, 5th place currently. Jose Bordalas has been a fantastic manager for Getafe, one of the most underrated managers in the world, truly been terrific. This is his 3rd season now at Getafe. His first season, which was the season where they got promoted back up to La Liga, they finished 8th, I do believe. Last year, 5th place. They missed out on Champions League on the last day of the year by a single point. And then this year they sit in 5th place again. Extremely good team. They have some really good players. David Soria has been arguably the best goalkeeper in the league this year. Thibaut Courtois and Jan Oblak and Ter Stegen deserve shouts, but David Soria has been so good for Getafe. Really a meteoric rise in a very short amount of time. We could definitely see a bigger move from him in the future. But yeah, David Soria up for best goalie of the year in La Liga this year. They also have a really good CDM, Mauro Arambari, I do believe. I could be butchering his name, but Atletico Madrid have looked at him to replace Thomas Partey in the future. So that really just goes to show how good Mauro has been for Getafe this year. They also have Marc Cucurella, who they bought from Barcelona on the cheap. Barcelona seem to have this thing where they let go of all their young, really exciting players for dirt cheap because they don't have a vision for the future, and Cucurella is one of them. Been really good on the wings for Getafe, provides that flair, spark, that bit of energy. He can cut in, crossing balls, been really, really good for Getafe. And then finally, Jaime Mata. We have seen him stay in La Liga for quite some time. He's nothing crazy, but consistently gets those goals. He's the veteran that those teams need, especially at the number 9 position, to really just finish off those chances, especially when you're a team that doesn't create a lot of chances, and Jaime Mata is that for them. So they just have some really, really good players all around. Like I said, they're only 1 point back from 3rd. Can they maintain this form, this consistency after the long layoff they've had? We will have to wait and see, but yeah, Getafe, really good team, very annoying to play against, and I would love to see them sneak into Champions League this year.
Next, we'll move on to Real Betis. Now, I actually don't know much about them, so Ryan, I'll let you go ahead and tell me what's going on there.
Yeah, Real Betis, like usual, are a very interesting club. They have been on an absolute roller coaster this season. They can beat anyone when they're on, and they can also lose to just about anyone. They can go from the peaks of attacking football to just a disgrace at times and just be terrible. They have some really good players, similar to how these other clubs do. Nabil Fekir has had a terrific season at Real Betis, one of their best signings ever. Been that creative spark. He can play in the 8, the 9, or the 10, be really, really good. He's by far their best player, and he has shown that this year. Mark Bartra is a pretty good center back. Nothing special, but pretty sound defensively. They've also signed William Carvalho from Sporting. He has been pretty solid this year, playing that CDM role. And then Sergio Canales is another one of those number 8 players that can provide that spark, that energetic key pass that you need. Just a really good number 10. Just provides lots of chances. Unfortunately, though, the problem with Real Betis is when you take out their defensive issues, there seems to be a striker issue. They have tons of good players. Christian Teo is another one. Joaquin is still kicking, been really, really good for Real Betis this year. Honestly, other than Fekir, their best player. These players create all these chances, and they can't finish them. There are 2 strikers, Borja Iglesias, who they paid a lot of money for from Espanyol last year, and Lauren only have 12 goals between the 2 of them, and those are their 2 strikers. They have way more goals coming from their wingers, their attacking midfielders, than they do from their strikers, and I think that's a big issue. Their strikers have really been struggling to finish those chances, and that's really held them back a little bit this year. But yeah, definitely keep an eye on Real Betis the remainder of the year. If they can get those strikers firing, they could really rise in the table immediately. Right now they sit in 12th place on 33 points, but if they could string a couple games together, get some wins, they could really make a jump and maybe even push for Europa League.
And lastly, we're going to talk about Espanyol and what's been going on with them. It's been kind of a sad story with them. As big of a club as they are from Barcelona, they just seem to be too big to go down. What's kind of going on there?
Yeah, Espanyol are a really weird situation. In other episodes, Sam and I have talked about these really big clubs that just have 1 or 2 bad years and then boom, out of nowhere, they're in the second division. We look at Sunderland, Hamburg, to name a couple in other divisions. Espanyol are right along those lines. They're a very similar club. They have a really big fan base. They even have some really good players. Marc Roca is a really good holding midfielder for them. He's been linked with Barcelona, Atletico, Real. Real were looking at him last summer very, very hard for a time, and it seemed like he was actually going to be headed to Madrid. Wu Li has been one of the most impressive non-domestic players in La Liga for a couple years now. Seems to definitely have an eye for goal and just been really, really good for them. Raul de Thomas, another really good striker. He wasn't great at Benfica when he left Real Madrid, but we know he has the goals in him, and we know he is a really good finisher. And then finally, Serge Darder is another holding midfielder they've had. So they have some really, really good pieces. Unfortunately, they just haven't been to string it together. And I can't really put my finger on the exact issues they're having. I haven't watched a ton of Espanyol. I've only watched a few games this year, but they sit in dead last in the table. I think they're 3 points from 19th. Just really, really struggling. They just have not been able to put it together, and I'm really confused. Only 4 wins and 23 goals scored. Not great at all. And like Sam said, they truly are just too big of a club to go down. I really hope they can get it together. They have some good players. I don't see why they can't really make a push towards the end of the year and stay up. But yeah, unfortunately, Espanyol, it just seems likely that they could be going down, and it's just a really sad story all around. I'm really, really hoping they can stay up for at least one more year in La Liga and sort of get everything together and figure it out.
Yeah, and with that being said, that's going to wrap up everything we have for this week on Manchester to Madrid World Football Podcast. Tune in next week as we'll be covering all football drama as usual from across the globe. If you like what you heard today, subscribe to our podcast on Google, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Rate us on those platforms and share us with your football-loving friends as well. We are on YouTube as well, so if you're interested, check us out there and subscribe. Thank you guys so much for the support, and we will talk to you again next week.